Welcome back to the Diary of a Micro Budget Filmmaker. I'm your host, Jack Shaberg. And one reason I'm smiling slash laughing is I just sent a text, a group text, or a text to a group message. And I meant to say, that looks like a big yes, because someone had posted this GIF or GIF. I don't know if you're team GIF or GIF of this little girl, and instead of yes, it came out ass. So it said it looks like a big ass. Oh, so that was funny. The other reason I'm slightly smiling is when we last met, which was a week ago Sunday in the evening, I had that colossal problem of losing the first 8 minutes, and I was trying to recover it. I couldn't recover it. Well, the mostly good news, I would say 85% good news, is that I eventually found a version of the timeline. It's interesting how DaVinci does it. Instead of recovering a whole project like Adobe does, or I'm sure other programs, you can also revive, if you will, individual timelines. So I was digging, I was looking everywhere. I didn't know how far back to go. I didn't know when I had made these changes. So I finally found a version which was surprisingly back at like early January, which just goes to show how little I've done, relatively speaking, since then. So I found it, and it had the first 8 minutes. It had a section that I had worked on that, I mean, I could have recreated it, but it would have taken, I don't know, a while. It was mostly just psychological. I didn't want to redo it. And so I've got to redo some color correction and grading that never got, well, it got done, but the version that I did it on got lost. So overall, it turned out not to be so horrible. Well, what's happened in the week since, or some people would say in the ensuing week? On Thursday, I think it was, we got another track from the composer and music player, piano player, for the trailer after giving him some notes, and we plugged it in. I plugged it in. I did the tweaking of the levels and, blah, 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 blah. And it works out much better. I sent it to Reese and Brett, and they really like it. So that was fun. That was exciting. And the guy who did it is excited about it. So just like 10 minutes ago, I sent him the cut trailer, in that I've tweaked just a couple of the opening where it has mindful entertainment, and then I changed, or I added a credit, and I did like one or two other things. I did some color correction. So it's basically ready to go. And I sent that to him because when he had sent the music, he had sent maybe, I don't know, 2 minutes and 10 seconds, say, and the trailer's about 1:50. And so I went in and I made a cut, which works pretty well because it's right before the dialogue gives way to the music. And so I was able to do that. And I just asked him, listen, I said, in a nicest way possible, I said, listen to it, watch it, and see if you want to redo it or if you want to leave it as is. Either way is fine. And he is kind of, I think, as I mentioned, and I'll call him a savant. I don't know if he is or not. To me, he is. And so I don't think he has been writing anything down per se. He just sort of plays it, and then he replays it, and then he replays it. That's the impression I have anyways. So I don't know. How do you like my haircut, by the way? Very professional looking. This side looks good. This side kind of sticks out a little bit, but so we'll see what he says. And then he had originally told me back in when we met, which was a little before, it was like January 12th. And I said, when do you think you could have like a rough version of like all the different tracks? Because I think there's probably a lot more than we initially envisioned there would be. And he had originally said mid-February. Now he's saying it will be, well, he didn't say, but he said, I mean, today's mid-February. Yesterday was mid-February. So if we get it by the end of February, I'd be happy. which then that leads me to say that originally he said he thought he could have everything done by the end of March, which I'm guessing is not going to happen. Not a big deal at all. He's enjoying it. It's a pretty cool process. I think he just talked to a guy who is sort of a recording engineer to some extent. That's not his profession, but he knows a lot about fair amount about audio recording. So they're figuring out how to record it. So that's cool. And so one change I made to the trailer, and I will show you the trailer, obviously, because we want to keep getting the word out. I originally had May 2026, and I've changed it to spring. So basically, that's obviously March 20th to June 20th or 21st, whatever it is this year, which gives us a little more leeway. It certainly won't it won't be before May 1st. I don't think any chance of that, but I'm pretty confident it will be done by officially end of spring, which is June, which most people consider summer. And then, of course, the question is what happens next? I'll get to that in a minute. The other thing that happened is that Sky and Christine both sent kind of rough versions of some new voiceover, not really voiceover, kind of off-screen stuff where they're on the other end of a Zoom call. I've mentioned that before for the end of the movie. And so I plugged that in so Reese and Brett could watch it in the context and listen to it. Sent that to them yesterday. I sent them the opening credits and the closing credits so they could look at it. The closing credits, the main thing there is we've got pictures of the nine actors, the 9 actors. And so we went through, I pulled a bunch out. I sent them to them. They looked at them and said, hey, use this for this, this for this. One issue is with Sky. Reese is also in the frame, and there's a lot of good ones with her by herself, but nothing that really looks credity, which is not a word, I don't think. But I sort of leaning on Brett and Reese to some extent to choose those. And so the ones they chose, we'll see how that goes. The opening credits are very simple, and I don't know if, the font, the positioning on the screen, exactly what their thoughts are on that. I don't have real strong thoughts right now. They're very minimal. It's just Mindful Entertainment presents, and then the name of the movie, and then 6 of the actors, and then I think the music credit, the writing credit, and the directing credit. So pretty simple, and it has to be because it has to fit within this opening sequence, part of which you are going to see when you watch the trailer, which I hope to have ready in a week or so. A little behind schedule on that, but again, that's fine. One more thing about the trailer, which I think I've talked about before, at a minute 50-ish, it's probably a little bit on the short side of trailers in the grand scheme of things, but the movie's not that long. It's barely, one way or another, don't tell anyone, but one way or another, I'm going to make sure it's 90 minutes plus the credits, because I think I mentioned I went to see the new Naked Gun, the reboot, and oh my gosh, the movie was okay, maybe a B minus, C plus, in my opinion. But the story was so thin and it was so padded with montages and whatever. And then I don't even think it was 80 minutes long plus the credits. It was crazy how short it was. And as I've said before, I know some animated movies are maybe 85, 87 minutes. But to me, if it's a live action movie, it's got to be 90 minutes, or I don't consider it a movie, which I don't know if I'm in the minority or not. But anyways, my point back to the trailer is this to me is it's more than a teaser, because, a teaser could be a couple action scenes or a couple things that are 30 or 45 seconds. And so this it definitely sets up the story. I think most of the shots are from the first act of the movie where it's getting set up, and there's a couple that come later on. And so I talked again with my co-directors, and we agreed that we don't want to give away any more than we are giving away. And so the flip side of that is, well, is it going to be compelling enough? Is it going to be like, I don't really understand what that movie is, so why should I go see it? As opposed to, the romantic comedy where it basically shows in 2.5 minutes, it shows the whole film and you know how it's going to turn out anyways, which kind of seems to be the trend that we're going to show you this 2.5 minute version of the movie, but then you can pay $20 and go see the whole thing, which I don't know that anyone's going to pay $20 to see this, but that's what we're doing. And I don't see us making a longer one. I don't know what would cause us to do that. So we'll see. Brett is working on the poster. He made a couple little changes. Reese and I looked at it and suggested just a few final ones, which he was good with. So he's working on that. And again, of course, once that is done, I will post it. And then yesterday, earlier in the week, I was working a little on the new script. And then yesterday I probably wrote 3 or 4 pages. And I don't know that I mentioned, but I kind of went back to the beginning because I'd written about 65 pages of a script, mostly over my Christmas break from work and a little bit into the new year. And then I didn't love it a lot. I thought there were some good elements, but I realized I think the cast was too big and it just, I don't know, maybe I'll come back and like it. But when I reread it, I was like, ugh. So I started over, same idea, same characters, everything, the same main characters, but I put it in a different setting. And I'm about 10 or 11 pages in, so kind of to the catalyst inciting incident. If you go by the strike the cat saves back, save the cat strikes back, or any of that. But just, general movie structure, the setup and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see how that goes. I think after I stop recording, I am going to write a little bit more of that. The Olympics are on, so I'm kind of watching that. And it's a beautiful day in mid-Michigan. I think it's like 50 degrees. Snow is melting. So a little longer update than normal. But, one other thing I did to some extent, I've been researching a little bit, film festivals, trying to decide that. I don't know that I mentioned I've got at least 2 of my previous films on IMDb. And I don't know if this is the case. Maybe it still is, that really the movie has to be completed, at least on my budget, not really budget, but in terms of validity or, is this a real movie or is it just something you want to get on IMDb? It has to be finished. You have to have, I think you've got to have like proof of theatrical release or that it's streaming or something. So it's going to be a while before that happens, but I'm confident that we can make that happen. I don't know why we can't. And pretty soon I'm going to start calling some local movie theaters to see what we can do about renting a screen or 2 to get it shown. And so that's pretty much the update. For the little that has been done, if you looked at the movie compared to a month ago, you'd go, wow, not much has been done. But this is where you get down into that 95% done, and the last 5% could take another 2 months, 3 months, or whatever. So that is how it's been. And I hope you've been well. I hope you're making your micro budget or macro budget. Micro or macro? That's interesting. I never thought of making a macro budget movie. Let's talk about that next time on The Price is Right. I'll see you later.